Spectrovision Radio.
So I've been diving deep into the science of out-of-body experiences and reverse engineering what happened with Robert Monroe to really understand how our consciousness locks into our body. And in doing so, I realized that our consciousness was never inside of our body to begin with. So the whole idea of having an out-of-body experience has completely changed for me. The things that I have uncovered, discovered, realized along the way are profound. They are deep, and I'm going to share them all with you today as we go into the science of the out of body experience and what it really means. We're going to understand better what the physical body even is, what consciousness is, what this connection between the two are, and why this triangulation between our higher self, our human self, and this other part that we're going to get into is actually the key, the biggest secret in the universe, and the whole reason why we even come into the physical to begin with. This episode is wild. It is deep. It is profound. It is transformative. It's a lot of fun. So let's dive in. Hello, friends. Welcome to another exciting episode of Conscious Observers. Today, we are going to deconstruct what a out-of-body experience is by reverse engineering what happened to Robert Monroe and diving into the science of it. This is wild. Okay, so if you don't know who Robert Monroe is, he was this sound engineer. He was a very successful sound executive back in the 1950s. And he was at the cutting edge of radio and, had all these different radio programs and radio stations and stuff like that. And as radio was transitioning to video, he didn't really want to go into video. So he was like, okay, what can we do to take sound to the next level? They were all sound guys, sound engineers. So he really wanted to figure out how to use sound to teach people things in their sleep. Back then, there was all the rage was, learn how to speak Spanish in your sleep, quit smoking in your sleep, these kinds of things. So he had a lot of money, resources, scientist, and he was in the lab all the time, playing around with sound, different tones, different beats, different frequencies, to try to get people in the state called mind awake, body asleep, which is when your body is basically asleep. You're out, you're in that hypnagogic state, that twilight state where all the magic happens right before you go to sleep, but you keep the mind awake and you can teach people things in this state. It's very effective. Well, he used himself as the guinea pig doing this for years. And he was a very sober-minded, rational, engineer, analytical type of a person. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he started having these just amazing but terrifying out-of-body experiences. Like his consciousness would just completely leave his body. The first time it happened, he was at home laying down and he felt these vibrations and this intense light. And then all of a sudden he felt himself hitting something hard. And he was like, what is this? And he thought that he had fallen out of the bed onto the floor because it was hard. So then he looks down, expecting to see the floor, and he sees a bed underneath him. But on the bed was two people. One of them was his wife. The other one was a man. And he was like, hey, buddy, what do you think you're doing here? Right? And he looked closer and he was like, oh, that's me. What the fuck? Where am I? And then he looked over and he saw a fan, ceiling fan. He's like, he had floated up to the ceiling. And he snaps back in his body and he was like, uh-oh, right? Like I'm having a stroke or there's something wrong with me. I have a brain tumor. So he went to all the doctors, started getting checked out. They said, no, you're fine. And it kept happening. Kept having these spontaneous out-of-body experiences. He was like, what is going on? Well, he was terrified. They checked him out. They said he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him, but he wanted to understand what was going on. Okay, fast forward. And he basically figured out that when he was in the lab doing all these sound experiments, he has headphones, he's playing around with different beats and different frequencies and tones and all these different things. And he's just scrambling his noggin, right? Like he just for years, right? For a good year plus, day in, day out, he was doing this. And then he would go home and he's tired. He would lay down and the laying down would trigger this out of body experience. Okay. There's so many very interesting things in there because as I started to reverse engineer, I read his books, I watched all of his podcast, he did a bunch of interviews, really long, in-depth interviews talking about all this. I watched all those. I've seen every video he's ever done. I've been to the Monroe Institute. I've talked to his family. I've talked to the people there. I've interviewed, all the executives. I've done a ton of research on this, not to mention just personal experience with out-of-body exploration, astral travel, all the gateway and everything. Like, I've been very immersed in this world for years now. And I feel like a very good grasp on what was happening with him in his life, with the sound and in that whole situation. So what I was like, okay, let's figure out, because he kind of made the whole word out of body experience famous. He brought it into the modern psyche. He's basically famous and most known for having these out of body experiences and teaching other people repeatedly how to have them, myself included. So I was like, okay, let's reverse engineer this, because I want to know what's happening here. Because, like, I've had an out of body experience and I astral travel and astral project and remote view, lucid dream, all these things. And they're two distinctly different worlds. Okay. They just are. I mean, having an out of body experience is way different than astral projection or remote viewing or lucid dreaming or any of those things. It's way different. So I was like, okay, what's happening? What is this mechanism? What is the tipping point? Like, what is actually going on inside the body and inside the consciousness stream that creates this completely different, worlds apart kind of a feeling? And how can we use things like Gateway, which is the same program? So when you do Gateway, there's these different modalities and stuff and different focus levels, but you're essentially using, headphones with Monroe Sound Science and the same sort of techniques. It's the same general modality. And on one hand, you can use that to very deliberately astral project and have a lucid dream and to remote view and to heal and to just sharpen your awareness and get answers to questions and all sorts of amazing things. But then on the other hand, using the same tool, you can cross this threshold and have an out-of-body experience. And I was like, what is that threshold? What is that tipping point? Because that to me is the most fascinating part. And I think I have figured it out. And it's not what I expected at all, actually. And that's why I get really excited about these things, because I don't just go out trying to prove a point, I'm going out curious. Just, I want to know. And I'm going to break it all down in this. And, we're going to get into things like sleep paralysis and aliens, interdimensionals, time travel. We're going to get into, purpose and all of the things. Okay. But first, to do that, I had to figure out what happened with Robert. When this was happening to him, he spent a lot of time at the beginning getting checked out by doctors, going to psychiatrists and talking to experts and trying to figure out what the hell's going on? Did I break something? Is there something wrong with me? And I even heard him in an interview explain it as if he said something along the lines that the locking mechanism, the thing that kind of locks your consciousness into your body, for him, he had dislodged or broken, and his consciousness was kind of slipping out. And I was like, okay, well, that's very interesting. But he didn't really know what that mechanism was. How could he? And he sort of just moved on to, he created the Institute, brought in a bunch of scientists like Tom Campbell and others, and was like, okay, now that I know this is possible, because at this point he had become very proficient in it. He was leaving his body and going and doing stuff. I mean, having just the wildest adventures. I mean, he wrote 3 books on all of his adventures, and I definitely recommend you read them because they are wild and profound. So he was more on, he's like, okay, well, this is amazing. So let's figure out how we can repeat this and how we can teach other people to do it, because it's so profound. And that's what the Monroe Institute is. The entire point of the Monroe Institute is teaching you how to expand your awareness, expand your consciousness. And part of it, there's all sorts of things you learn there, but part of it is also how you can leave your body if you so choose. And you have this greater ability and access when you do that. And I was like, okay, so that's what he was focused on. So I was like, okay, that's great. I mean, I do all those things too, but I was like, I also want to know, what is it? What is that lock that you broke or whatever? What's going on there? And here's what I found. And this is so fascinating. Regardless of what modern neuroscience says, your brain does not create consciousness. Okay. I think we all know that, but we're still told that it does because we still are stuck in this materialist paradigm where modern science, especially neuroscience, is still convinced for whatever reason, even with all the proof of non-local consciousness, even though it won a Nobel Prize and everything, proving non-local consciousness, we still are stuck in this world where we are convinced that the brain creates the illusion of consciousness. Now, I'm not going to get too far into this, but I do have my information theory of consciousness, which states that, in a way, complex information and intelligence leads to emergent consciousness. But that doesn't mean that's what's happening here. It means that we can create, like our body, this vehicle, this avatar is sentient. It does create a low level of consciousness. But what we call our consciousness, like us, the essence of us, our soul, that does not emerge from our body. That comes down. Think of it like a radio. A radio has the radio and the receiver, and then it has an antenna. That antenna catches a carrier wave. There's this wave that goes through the air right now. It's all around you. You just can't see it. Permeating everything, going through the walls, going through your body, going through everything. And it's a modulating carrier wave, which means that it has like little, it's like braille kind of, you know what I mean? Like Morse code. And depending on how it's modulated, it hits the antenna, it goes down into the receiver, and then that transduces it, turns it from one signal to another, and it comes in as radio waves and it leaves as sound waves. That's a transducer. That's the antenna. Our body's the same thing. Okay. So our body is a receiver, and our brain is the antenna, the transducer, and our consciousness is a carrier wave. And it is like, fingerprinted to us. It's kind of like a lock and key. And it is tuned, you could say. You could say our body is tuned to it, I guess would be a better way to say it. So our body is like the receiver, our brain is like the antenna, and then we tune to a certain station, which is our consciousness. Okay. That I firmly believe. I've done all sorts of things to prove this. There's emerging science that's proving it. That is basically the way I see how the human body receives consciousness. And I'm not alone. There's very, very bright people that think the same thing. It's just kind of hard to prove, kind of like if you took a radio and you didn't know any better and it's playing music, like a caveman would be like, hit it with a rock and open it up and expect there to be like a band in there playing, like little people. But there's not, right? So a caveman would be like, where's the sound coming from? Where's the voice coming from? There's nobody in here. It wouldn't understand. We're kind of like cavemen with the body. We're like, we open up the brain expecting to see stuff. And we're like, we don't understand. It's just mush. Like, how does it work? You know what I mean? It's like, well, if you open up a radio, you're just going to see little transistors and stuff. You're not going to see people playing instruments or anything like that. It doesn't really make any sense. So anyways, let's just assume for the sake of this talk that our body is a receiver, our brain is an antenna, and it transduces this signal from one signal to another. And that signal is your consciousness, like it's streaming down into you, okay? Let's just assume that's true. Well, there's certain things inside of your brain that are happening all the time that act as like a GPS signal, okay? It basically is like a pin drop in this world. Because remember, the whole point of this is that our consciousness is non-physical and it wants to enter into this physical world. And our body is kind of like a drone in a way. It's like a remote avatar. And it has to stream in somehow, okay? Well, it also has to have a few things. It has to have a sense of identity, right? That's what we call the default mode network. It's a very well-studied thing, the DMN. And that default mode network is what creates your sense of identity. It's like, I am me. I'm Jordan. This is who I am. If I hit my arm here, that's going to hurt. But if I hit that guy's arm over there, I'm not going to feel it because he has his own default mode network. This is my default mode network, right? So that's my identity. So that's a big part of it. Then you have this thing called there's no way I'm going to say it right. So I'll just call it the TPJ. That's what it's called. But it stands for temporal parietal junction, something like that. Anyways, it's two parts of your brain that connect. And that's your like GPS. That gives you your location. That's what tells your consciousness where you are. Okay? It's like, I am here. It's like a GPS signal. I am right here. And then you have this thing called the vestibular system. Okay? That's the things inside of your ear that when you get like an ear infection or something and you get vertigo and you're all off, that's what gives you your orientation. So you have this 3-part anchor system. Okay? You're anchored here. So you have the TPJ. That's your location. GPS signal, here I am. You have your identity, your default mode network, I am me. And then you have your orientation, your vestibular system. It tells you what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right. Am I moving? Am I not moving? Now you put these three things together and it creates this signal. And that signal is very strong. It's I am me, here is where I am, and here's what's happening. Am I moving? Am I not? Am I still, am I on my left or my right? Am I up? Am I down? All those kind of things. Those three things together create this very detailed signal that coordinates, that relays information that says, here I am. Okay. Now, this is all very important because of this. If that signal gets scrambled, your consciousness cannot phase lock into it, and it doesn't know exactly where the body is. Remember, the whole point of this talk here is about having an out-of-body experience. So, how do you have an out-of-body experience? Well, you have to basically collapse the anchor. You have to create a temporary situation where that stream of consciousness doesn't know exactly where the body is. And by doing so, it loosens that laser-like lock. Robert Monroe called it a phase lock. This is all phase locking. And that's why he would say that when you're altering your state of consciousness, you're shifting your phase. Okay. So when you are in complete waking consciousness, like I am now, and I'm moving around, I'm seeing things, I'm hearing things, I'm feeling things and all that stuff, all these things, like the TPJ, it knows where I am, because I can see, I can see all the things around me. I have spatial awareness, so it knows exactly where I am. It's transmitting that information up. I know my identity because I can feel things. I can see things. I can see myself, I can see my hands. Look, I know I'm here. Then you have your vestibular system, which is your orientation. It's like I'm sitting up. I know exactly what angle I'm sitting at and all this kind of stuff. Okay. When you scramble all that, then your consciousness can't lock. And then what happened with Robert Monroe is he scrambled it. And don't worry, because Gateway doesn't do this. Gateway is what he created afterwards to create this safe, structured system to explore in the astral. But what he did, because this is way before Gateway, this is when he was just in the lab, just guinea pigging himself. What he did is he scrambled the system. And he would come home from work and his system's all scrambled, right? His temporoparietal junction, the self-location part, the GPS pin, didn't know exactly where his body was. His vestibular system was all off. He would report that he was dizzy and had headaches and stuff. And then he would lay down. And when you lay down, you close your eyes, then your default mode network goes away, or it's relaxed because you're not seeing your hands, you're not seeing your furniture, you're not seeing your house. All those things that tell you who you are and where you are and your identity start to drift away. And then he would lay down, and then his consciousness would leave his body. And he would be like, right? Because he didn't know what was going on. I really think that's what was going on. He was scrambling that system. He was scrambling his GPS. So how your consciousness phase locks into your body like a laser, it's like locked in. It didn't know where it was. It was like I think it's there, maybe it's there, and at a certain point it lost that anchor, and then it would float out. And that was very scary for him. He was having sleep paralysis at the beginning, which is very scary. I've had it. Most people have had it at some point in their life. It's actually very common. All sleep paralysis is kind of the doorway to have an out-of-body experience, if you think about it. What sleep paralysis is like your body whenever it's dreaming, whenever it's sleeping, it doesn't want you to act out dreams, because if you acted out your dreams, you could hurt people around you, because a lot of times in your dreams, you're doing dangerous stuff. So it releases this chemical that basically paralyzes your body. But sometimes when you wake up, like your hands are numb and stuff, and it takes a minute for them all to come back online. Well, sleep paralysis is basically when you're supposed to be asleep, because your body only releases that chemical when you're asleep, and you've woken up. And now your body's paralyzed, but you're awake, and it's not supposed to happen that way. And a lot of people wake up because something's in the room with them or something, and that's why they wake up. That's why a lot of times when you have sleep paralysis, there's also beings in the room or things happening, and you're like, So, anyways, that's a whole side thing. But when you're trying to have an out of body experience, sometimes you go through that sleep paralysis moment, and a lot of times people will panic and they'll snap right back in. That just means that your anchor, like we talked about, your anchor is weakened, but it's still active. You know what I mean? So you just kind of push through, because that means that you're very close. So it's not a problem or anything. It's kind of like the threshold. It's like you're in that in-between state. So anyways, he had that stuff, and he was having all these things happen, and he was very freaked out. about all this. But whenever you actually like really study what happened with him, it allows you to reverse engineer and discover the science of the out of body experience. And we find that you have this intricate system in your brain that acts as this like homing device for your consciousness, and you can relax that. Like what he did is he scrambled it inadvertently, but then he created Gateway and he started to figure out ways to do it in a deliberate but safe way. And that's amazing. But there's certain elements to it. Like, out of body experiences always are easiest when you are like first waking up in the morning, or when you like wake up in the middle of the night. Like a lot of people wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. They don't know why. At that point, it's a great time to do it because you're in this, it's called hypnagogia. It's that hypnagogic state. And when you're in that state, it's the best time to do it. Because when you are laying down flat, you have, what is that part called? The vestibular system. When you're laying down flat, the vestibular system, which is your orientation, it kind of goes to sleep. When you're sleepy, your default mode network relaxes for sure. And then that TPJ, the self-location, the GPS signal, it starts to kind of deactivate whenever you're going to sleep too, because none of that stuff's necessary. It's all going offline. And then like, say you close your eyes, then, you're not seeing anything, you're not hearing anything, your senses kind of go dormant, and it's so much easier to slip out of that. And so the stillness removes like the body input. Like if you're touching things and feeling things, you're constantly telling yourself, I'm in my bed or I'm wherever. So be still, very still is key. Get into that hypnagogic state, whether it's, nap time or, that's why he created like binaural beats. The Monroe sound science puts you into that theta brainwave state. And when you do that, it sort of mimics sleeping. It gets you in that hypnagogic state. So either do it like in the morning when you first wake up, or when you're going to bed at night, or when you wake up, or nap time. Anytime you're sleepy is great. But a lot of times when you do it that way, you just fall asleep, So that's why like the brilliance of the binaural beats and Gateway is it's mind awake, body asleep. That's the whole point, is your body can go to sleep, but your mind stays sharp and aware and awake. And when you do that, then you can successfully leave without falling asleep. So out of all the things that create hypnagogia, the binaural beats is actually the most effective for this, especially like the Monroe sound science. And the new, we call it Gateway Voyage Online. The new one is so good because it does this 5D spatial sound where the sounds kind of move around in your headphones, and it keeps you awake and aware. You're much less likely to fall asleep, much less likely to click out, because the sound's moving around in this very cool way. It's amazing. It gives your brain something to follow and to do, so it keeps it awake and aware. It's made specifically for this. And a quick plug, go to my website and you can get 10% off Gateway Voyage Online. And on Wednesday, April 1st, we actually start our cohort, and we're all together doing this. There's like 200 people in it already. And we're going to do Gateway together for 6 weeks. And it's freaking amazing. You're going to learn how to out of body travel, but all sorts of things too. And you get 10% off and you get free access if you use my code. The code is GVO-Jordan. It stands for Gateway Voyage Online-Jordan. So GVO-Jordan. Get 10% off, free access into the cohort. So go to my website. All the information's below, and you can join. And the cohort's for 6 weeks. So even if you don't, like say you're watching this video down the road, you can join anytime. You'll be able to see in the course, you can go back, and it's all organized. And it's that's the whole point of the cohort, is we're all there to support you and to help. So you can join anytime. You get lifetime access to Gateway Voyage, and it's do it at your own pace. We're just doing it together so that we can support each other, motivate each other. And you have all these experts in the group that can help you out, including myself and Sarah, and we've all been through Gateway. And so it's going to be amazing. So much fun. We start on Wednesday, but you can join anytime. Don't worry if this is after the 1st. Come join us, but use my code. That's the only way you can join. Anyways, so that's kind of like what I've learned through all this as I reverse engineered like what happened with Robert Monroe is, okay, the difference between like astral projection and, out of body experience is that anchor. Okay. So for example, because people talk about this all the time, they're like, isn't astral projection just out of body? And what's the difference? And I've seen people argue over it. And my biggest takeaway from everything I learned is that with astral projection, just like with lucid dreaming, just like with daydreaming, just like with remote viewing or any of the other things that you can do in this state, your body is still your anchor point. Like you don't need to dissolve the body. You don't need to mess with the GPS at all to do this. What you're doing is you're basically just taking your awareness, your conscious awareness, and either bilocating it or just like gently moving it out of, like right now my awareness is always like a VR headset, like right in front of me. I can just move it to other places. Close your eyes, you kind of, your senses go dormant, and I can like concentrate on a coordinates or something, and I can remote view another place. Well, I can remote view that other place, pull in all the sensory data from it, and feed it to my body and create this picture in my head and remote view a place that's not here by tapping into the non-local consciousness field. I can do that. Anybody can. You can do it. It's pretty easy, actually. To do that, I actually need my body to be anchored because my body's rendering all that information, right? So I don't want my body, I don't want to disrupt that. So that's the difference with astral projection, remote viewing, and all that stuff, is that your body is still your anchor point. That doesn't change, and it's actually important for it to stay. So you want to reinforce when you're doing those things that your body is safe. You want to know where you are, you still want to be still, and you want to kind of be able to focus. But that's why people can remote view. Like back in the day at SRI, Stanford Research Institute, Robert Monroe was there too with Russell Targ and Hal Pitoff and all those guys. And he was teaching them how to remote view. And these guys would like sit around smoking cigarettes and sitting in chairs, and they would just kind of close their eyes and they would remote view and they would doodle and stuff like that. And they would get these very accurate, amazingly accurate remote viewing sessions while they're like mostly awake. You know what I mean? They would get in a kind of a semi, hypnotic state, a little bit of a trance going on, but they're still, smoking cigarettes and stuff, it's the 70s, but still it's funny. And they're like drawing. You have to kind of write out and draw out and sketch out what the sensory input. So you can see how like you can remote view and you're in this altered state of consciousness. You're tapped into the non-local consciousness field, but your body is still the anchor. Not only is it still the anchor, it's still very much aware. Okay. Now, when you do an out-of-body experience, you dissolve the boundary. Your consciousness now no longer knows where your body is. And it not only doesn't know where your body is, like location-wise, like GPS-wise, but actually the boundary of it, and that you use that to your advantage, because like what you do in that point is you sort of, this is what I do anyways. Like say you're laying down in your bed, you're going through the process to have an out-of-body experience. In this case, you don't want to move. You don't want to have any sensory input at all. And you're laying there. What I do is like, okay, here's my body here. I imagine I have another body like 2 feet above it, levitating above it. Okay. And I actually imagine it kind of like rising up, like almost like peeling up like Velcro. Okay. And the reason this works so good, scary good, there's all these different methods, but this one I like is because since your consciousness is having trouble like geolocating where your physical body is, by doing this, it kind of confuses it, because now your consciousness is like, well, is it here or is it here? Because my imagination is projecting it 2 feet above me. So now all of a sudden you can get that signal, your consciousness signal, to lock on to that second body, the astral body. Robert Monroe actually called this the second body, that you had a first body and a second body. In this second body, you can kind of confuse the signal in a way, right? It's kind of like using a VPN, to like triangulate your signal from your computer. You can reroute it and say, oh no, I'm not in America. I'm in the Cayman Islands, and have the signal go there and then it comes here, right? You can kind of do that. You can say, okay, my body's here, my physical body, but my astral body's here. And you kind of project it above you. And if you do all these other things just right, and you dissolve this boundary of who you are and this anchor of where you are, then you can get your consciousness to lock on to that second body. And when it does, now you're out of body, but you're still you. It's still your stream of consciousness, but now it's no longer locked onto your physical body. Guess what? That's an out of body experience. And it's freaking amazing. And it's wild, because when that happens, now you're still in this physical world for the moment, right? As long as you choose to be, but you're not constrained by the physical body and by the laws of physics. That's why you can go through walls and you can fly and you can do all sorts of stuff, but you still retain your memory. Like even like flying can be scary sometimes, because you're flying and like I know where I live here, I know what my house looks like and that kind of stuff. But when you go up and you realize, I've never seen it from this point of view. You know what I mean? Like kind of roofs look the same after a while. And then if you get far enough away, you're like, I don't know where the hell I am anymore. You lose all of your sense of awareness or of positioning. But you maintain your you know what I mean? Like you don't have your sense of you as in like your physical body, but you have your sense of you as in like your personality and your memories and your thoughts and that kind of stuff. You're still you, but you're not in your body anymore. And that I have found is the best way to do it. Now, Robert Monroe really loved doing the rollout method. So basically all these methods I'm about to tell you. So say you're you're purposely trying to have an out of body experience, and say you're laying down, you have the headphones on, you're listening to Monroe Sound Science, you're doing Gateway, and you're going through the process. First we bubble up. We do our reball. It's our resonant energy balloon. We do the energy conversion box. We do the resonant tuning. We do all these things because what you're doing is like Robert always said that your body, the physical body, is a tuning instrument, that you're tuning consciousness, but our body is out of tune a lot. And the reason it was originally called hemisync is it stood for hemispheric synchronization. You're synchronizing the two spheres of your head. You're also synchronizing your whole body, because when we do the resonant, the resonant breathing, we do these breathing exercises, but we also do this kind of humming and this kind of a thing. It tunes, like a tuning fork, your entire body. And it gets you as this like finely tuned instrument, and when you're coherent like that, you have this high coherence and low body input, plus low orientation, meaning like, you start to forget where you are. You don't have any body input, so you're not paying attention to that. And you have this high coherence. Then at that point, you can mentally dissolve your boundaries. You can basically, through these different mental exercises, collapse your anchor by like dissolving the boundary of your body. And by then confusing your consciousness by creating this projection of your astral body. And then having it phase lock onto that. So Robert had different things. He did the rollout method where, like, say you're laying like this, he would just imagine his consciousness rolling out of his body, like how you would roll off a bed, like do that. And what that does is it's disorientating that stream of consciousness, and it's giving it something else to lock onto. There's the rope method where you're laying on your back and you're not moving. Your body's perfectly still. But you imagine, this is all imaginative, like your body's not moving through any of this. You don't roll or anything. But the rope method is where in your imagination, your astral body is pulling this rope, pulling it from the ceiling. The rope comes from the ceiling and it's pulling your astral body out of your body. And now your consciousness locks onto that. There's the rake method. He tried this with some success where, when a rake's laying on the ground and you step on the flat end and the other part pops up and hits you in the head, kind of like that. Now imagine your feet is the flat end of the rake and your astral body stepped on it, or something stepped on it and your astral body kind of popped out. That's if you want to do it suddenly, I don't like that one. There's different methods, but the rollout, the rope, the rake, those are some of them. Some people do the sit-up method, which you basically just sit up, and then kind of stand up and get out of your body. That's where when he got really proficient, is he would just basically sit up. But he used the rollout a lot. He liked that one. I like the sort of, I don't know what you call it, the levitating one. Like you're laying there and you just imagine your astral body just 2 feet above you, just exactly like you are, like bunk beds right above you. And because I just imagine in my head, it makes more sense that the stream of consciousness is coming down. I don't know. To me, it makes more sense, visually. So it's like, okay, well, if the stream is coming down, then, and I know that's probably not the way it actually works, but I don't know how it actually works. But in my mind, that makes sense. So I'm laying in the bed like this, and the stream is my stream of consciousness is coming down. So if my astral body is like this, it's going to hit it first. It phase locks into it, and then you can just sort of go from there. So, that's like, to me, that is what an out-of-body experience is. Dissolving the boundaries of the body, collapsing that anchor point, and then just locking that consciousness onto your astral body. And then, but doing it in this very confident way, because what happens a lot, so many times, is that as soon as you're able to successfully leave the body, you turn around, you see the body, and then boom, you snap right back in, because then that's your anchor. Like, then your consciousness is like, oh no, that's my body. Like, what am I doing over here? I'm out of my body. I need to be over there. All of a sudden it remembers where the anchor is. It recalibrates and you're just poof, back in. So the whole time you're doing this, you have to be communicating to your consciousness. Like you have to be lucid through this and basically be like saying, I'm doing this on purpose. Okay. Like, like there's my body. It's okay. I want to maintain, I want to be over here, like I don't want to zoom back in. So that whole getting over that fear factor, that kind of that barrier, is extremely important because so many things will scare you right back in. And also like things like, okay, maybe you have an itch or your cat scratched you or something, boom, you're right back in. But if you understand that, if you maintain this lucidity and you're like, oh yeah, that's my cat scratching my physical body, that's okay, I'm over here, then you can kind of fight against it. And now you can decouple. Because what I've learned through this whole thing is that, we call this an out of body experience, but you're not actually ever in your body. Just like there's not a band inside the radio. It's just a signal. And that signal hits the antenna and it doesn't actually even need to go into the radio. It's transduced. That signal is transduced in the antenna. And then that feeds a different signal into the radio. And then the sound waves come out. So in a way, our consciousness hits our brain, which is the antenna, the transducer, and then it turns that conscious signal into something else. So it's not even in the body, which I know is wild. So what we're doing, so it's coupled to the body though. It's coupled, like a lock and a key. So we're just uncoupling it temporarily. But just so it's pretty easy to get, there's that, what we call the silver cord. And that just means that you are tethered to your body. And in doing all these things, you're just temporarily loosening these grips. Okay. It's not anything, in all of the decades and decades and probably hundreds of years and whatever of people doing this, I don't know of any stories of anybody ever getting lost and like not being able to come back. As long as your physical body is alive, you're always going to be tethered. Just like you can be having a wild dream, and if somebody like wakes you up, you're right back in your body. Like you don't get lost or anything. What you're doing is you're just temporarily loosening the GPS signal so that you can, you can decouple the consciousness from the body, couple it to the astral body, and move around in the astral, and then you can always just come right back in. And I'm pretty sure this is how, side note, squirrel, I'm pretty sure this is how like channeling works, because we know that channeling works. I have never had my body channeled. Like I've never had it happen to me, but I've been in the room with people channeling, and I've seen, the Explorer series on the Monroe Institute YouTube channel, they have all sorts of Explorer series things, and there's multiple channelings in there. Miranon and Thor and all these different people were channeling through the people at the Monroe Institute, and it's all recorded. It's amazing. And so I know that channeling is a real thing. I've been in the room with people channeling that I know and I trust, friends that have done this deliberately, and it's a real thing. It's wild. And what it seems like is, okay, if a consciousness is tuned, like if my consciousness is tuned to my body, say there's a higher level consciousness, a very advanced consciousness that understands all these things I'm telling you, plus a million times more, then they would have this ability to I don't think that they actually move your consciousness out of the body, because people that channel, a lot of times they're aware this is happening. There's another intelligence, channeling through their body. If you don't know what channeling is, it's essentially like another signal coming into your radio. Okay. So imagine like, how sometimes like those radios, it's actually a good analogy. Sometimes you'll have a radio and you're in between stations and it's picking up, it's like Tejano and then like sports radio. And you're like, this is a mess. It's two, signals coming in. That's what it's like. So this other signal's coming in and using your body to communicate. That's what channeling is. And it actually makes sense through this model that we're talking about here. Especially if you do the things we talked about to kind of, loosen or collapse that anchor, then you could channel, something else could channel in. But you are always in control. So don't worry about somebody like just doing that, like that doesn't ever happen. Like all these things where these people channeled, the intelligences like come to them and like, it's like this relationship that they have. And at a certain point, they're like, do you want me to do this? And the people are like, yes, but plenty of people say no, and it just never happens. It's completely up to you. But this model that I'm laying out here actually explains how channeling works. It's just some other signal using your radio, but your signal's still in it. So anyways, that's really cool, right? And it explains the difference between remote viewing and astral projection and things like that and out of body experience, because out of body experience is definitely different. It feels real. It's visceral. Like you're not just partially out of your body. You are out of your body. Like your whole consciousness, you can go through walls. And when you go through walls, you feel like the fibers and the textures and like the fiberglass and the insulation and this kind of stuff. It's way different than astral projection. Okay. Now that we talked about all that, I might make this part quick because this is a total mind F, and it has a lot to do with what we just talked about, but it goes in a different direction. But when I was researching all this, there's this paradox, okay? And this happens with Robert Monroe, and it's all related to all this, and this all explains it. But there was this thing that I couldn't reconcile. So in Robert Monroe's books, he's told and he discovers that his physical lifetime, okay, is very, very important to his non-physical, what he calls the I there. The I there is like your higher self. Okay, so imagine you've had a bunch of lifetimes and stuff like that. All that data, all that information, all those lives, all those thoughts, all those relationships, all those experiences, all that is data, and it's stored like in a file folder on a cosmic database, okay? And that's your higher self. That's the totality of you. He called it the I there. That's all of you. And then a portion of that comes into this, streams into this, phase locks into this body and uses it kind of like a drone. And here I am, I'm in the world, I'm doing these things, but it's still transmitting all that information back up there. And your higher self, can transmit information to you. That's this relationship, this communication that we have. Okay, here's the paradox, and here's the really crazy part. What he discovered is that when you're over there, like we like to think that when we're in this physical world, we're very restricted. Okay, we come in, we get the memory wipe, we're deaf, dumb, and blind. We don't know where we came from. We don't know where we're going. We don't know why we're here. Everything's weird and confusing. And we think that in the spirit world, or whatever you want to call it, that you just have all this access and all this knowledge and freedom, and you're finally not here. Here's where it gets weird. He discovered the opposite, that you have on the outside, okay, say in the spirit world, you have more information, more access to information, of course, because that's like the external hard drive. But when you're inside, you have less information, but more control, free will. You have agency. You are now individuated. And that is a big deal. And I'll explain why, because this is the most mind-blowing thing ever. And then we'll get into the triangulation effect. Ooh, boy. Okay, so stay with me. I'm glad you're still here. Okay. So what his higher self was telling him is they're like, we need you, Robert. Like your lifetime is very important. And they were like communicating things that he needed to do. He had abilities that he doesn't have over there. And you would think, okay, let's really think about this, really break this down. And you got to think about it like this. Okay, let's use the computer analogy. So you have an external hard drive. That external hard drive has all this information. You put all these files and stuff over there. Now, say you have like a video file, okay? It's a video file you put on your external hard drive. Well, it's stored there. All the information's there, but it doesn't really do any good until it's activated, right? There's other things in the hard drive. There's background programs running and file, space saving, things running and different things running, right? So it has some intelligence. It has a background intelligence to the external hard drive. But for you to really, really bring that video file to life, you have to bring it to your computer and run it through a program. And you're going to have to run it through like a media player, which can, decode and encode all that information and turn it into a video. It takes all those bits of information. Now it's a video. Okay. All right. So check this out. So that data was just dormant before. It didn't really have agency. It couldn't really do much. But now that you put it on your computer and you put it in a program, it comes to life. It can do all these things. That's what this world is. So our higher self is in that external hard drive, and it needs to come here to be expressed, to have agency, to do things. Okay. And that's the thing. So that's why we come here. And then when you come here, your higher self tries to wake you up, because then it's like, okay, you're awake. Cool. You're inside and you're awake. You have agency. You're in the program. And now we can communicate to you and have you do things. Okay. So now that you're awake, go do these things. And then the triangulation is that this is where out of body experience is so profound, is okay, now that you're in here and now that you're awake and you're in the system, now you can have the best of all worlds. Now you can uncouple from the physical body. So you still have this this anchor, this agency, right? But now you also have this freedom. So you have the best of all worlds. You can explore the astral and gather all the information, but do it in this way where you have free will. You have agency, and you don't have that when you're back in the astral and the external hard drive. That's the really, really super duper powerful part of the out-of-body experience. It is the best of all the worlds, the physical and the non-physical. And I think that is the secret weapon. I think it is the most powerful and effective thing for getting real knowledge and really getting what Robert calls escape velocity, and figuring out how to get our higher self out of that external hard drive and remove it from this sort of computer altogether. Wild, huh? Okay. I'm almost out of space on mine, funny enough, because I keep getting the signal. So if you're getting any glitches, that's why. So I got to end this now. I'm about to run out of space and I don't want to lose all this. Anyways, holy cow. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Please, if you can, I know it's not super cheap, but use my code and you get 10% off. But join our cohort if you want to really take all these things to the next level. It starts on April 1st, but you can join anytime. Link below. Please like and comment. Let me know what you think about all this. I know that was a lot. So anyways, but it's really interesting. I think we're learning a lot about what consciousness is and what we're doing here. Anyways, love you guys. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you.